If you're a Persona fan, let me ask you a question. If someone were to ask you, what is it you like most about Persona? How would you answer? Perhaps you'd say the gameplay, the characters, or the music. But I think for most of you, you'd probably answer the style. See, with the release of Persona 5 in 2017, Persona has become as mainstream as it could possibly be, cementing its place as one of the most iconic, not just JRPGs, but video game franchises of all time. It's to a point where it's even got a rep in Smash Bros. And is up there as one of the big three of Sega's IPs, next to Yakuza and goddamn Sonic the Hedgehog. A big reason why Persona has gotten this far is because of the immense creativity and passion behind it, not just in Persona 5, but in its previous entries as well. So now let's jump back to 2008, where some brave souls at Atlus, the creators of Persona, and A1 Pictures, the studio that produced the series, dared to ask the question, what if we made a Persona project that had absolutely none of the things people loved? Originally, I had never planned for this to be my first fully focused Persona video. Originally, I wanted to do Persona 3 Reload, but with my downward spiral into the anime rabbit hole in 2024, and as well as me getting into Persona the same year, I chose to check out Trinity Soul with the assumption that it's somewhat of a spiritual successor to Persona 3. And that's the story of how I got lied to. Okay, see, when it comes to the backstory of this thing, yes, it is technically a successor to 3. You've got Akihiko appearing as a recurring character once the second half of the show starts, and he also becomes the only character I actually get to see on screen just because I loved him in Persona 3. So you can see where my thoughts on this show are going, by the way. You've also got mentions of Apathy Syndrome and sometimes songs like Changing Seasons or Burn My Dread making appearances in the show. But beyond that, this is honestly really just its own thing. And also, fun fact, despite this show taking place in 2019 and constantly referring to the incident from 10 years ago, which lines up perfectly with the plot of Persona 3, when they mention this incident, they aren't talking about Apathy Syndrome or really anything regarding Persona 3's plot. They're actually talking about an entirely different incident. I don't know if they intended that, or if it was just an accident. That was a very stupid move to make. It does make me glad that at the very least this show isn't canon. That's right, this series isn't canon at all. For multiple reasons, but the main one being the stupid rules they imposed on themselves, such as adults can't use personas, which has never been the case. Actually, that's been disproven as far back as the very first entry in the series. Which then at this point makes you question two things. Why was this show made, and who is it supposed to be for? Because, my god, we have not even talked about the plot. This show's plot and its characters feel so empty. That feels like there's a genuine attempt here to make something interesting, but it's just not working. All the characters just feel so sad, they rarely get any downtime or moments to enjoy themselves, which all of the mainline Persona casts have had plenty of. The plot itself is just very slow-paced and downright confusing at times. Like, they'll have an episode end in the middle of something major happening, and then the next episode will start in a completely different area, and then they'll barely give you context on the events that happened following the previous episode. It just expects you to figure it out on your own. Trinity Soul's main cast consists of 6 people: the protagonist Shin Kizato, his brothers Ryo and Jun Kizato, and then Shin's classmates Takaro Sakakiba, Megumi Tayano, and Kanaru Morimoto, with the last one being Shin's love interest as well. Each of these characters are just, bro, they are so fucking boring. They have no source at all. There's nothing interesting or cool about them. Shin is like an okay protag. He's not bad, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you he's horrible. But compare him to Makoto or Kotone, and it's not even a competition. He looks like a side character in his own series. He's just very bland. He doesn't really stand out much aside from not being a wild card. Actually, what's funny is Atlus actually has done what I said. A few times in the past, there are official art pieces of him with Makoto, Yu Narukami, and sometimes Kotone. And it might be the biggest case I've ever seen of bro thinks he's on the team. He just does not fucking fit at all. Even within his own show, he's just eh. He doesn't inspire the main cast, he doesn't really be the cause of any major events, he's just a dude. Jun, and technically Yuki as well, who is the brother's deceased sister and the twin sister of Jun, is actually pretty cool. I liked Jun's character a lot and by far thought he was the MVP of the series. If Akihiko wasn't here, he'd probably be my favourite. He takes on the navigator slash support role of the team, although honestly it's hard to call him a navigator when there's no type of dungeon thing here. Ryo is the eldest brother, and again, he's okay I guess. I think him being boring is justified because that's the point of his character. He's lost the joy and youthfulness that he used to have when he was a kid, thanks to all that happened in the incident from 10 years ago, which they will not stop mentioning. Seriously, that should be its own drinking game. Take a shot every time they mention 10 years ago. And then we have Shin's classmates. Where the hell do I start? I guess let's just begin with Takuro. Takuro is a weird character. It feels like he's supposed to be the lovable dumbass of the group, basically the Junpei of the team. But he lacks any of the charm that Junpei has. There's no memorable lines from him, or any moments I can really think of that make me laugh. He's just lacking in pretty much every department. Then there's Megumi, who is another character that I actually do kind of like. Her situation with her stepmother is pretty well handled and genuinely nice development. She's one of the characters I think was given the most care by far and actually feels in place in this franchise. What's funny though is they also try to have Megumi act as a love interest for Takuro, and it is just awkward as hell. There is zero chemistry between these two. I don't care to see them interact, and I especially don't care to see them get together, which is never actually confirmed that they do, but it is pretty heavily implied they're going to end up together. And then for the final character, we have Morimoto. Morimoto is the love interest of the protag, and she's eventually revealed to be a robot who also just happens to be able to summon a persona. Wow, I haven't heard this story before. Morimoto is probably the biggest case of this show trying to have emotional moments, and then most of the time failing because the characters aren't worth caring about. By this, I'm talking about the scene where she dies. They spend a lot of time having you spend these final moments with her. She's been a character since the beginning, so why did I not care when she died? Why did I feel nothing towards her whatsoever? Because simply put, all of these characters just feel the same. Her death didn't move me, it just felt shallow and lacking purpose. Her death didn't represent anything, it's just a sad end to an already gloomy character. Personally, I would have let her live and let her rebuild her life, despite her memories of the past just being illusions, showing that she deserves the chance to be human just like anyone else does, regardless of what she actually is. By having her die, it's not a moving moment that represents any of the show's core themes, it's a moment that feels like it's being done for shock value. That's what I mean when I say I feel like there are attempts to make something interesting, but none of the writers feel skilled enough to know where to take it next. It feels like they're trying to rip off Persona instead of embracing Persona's core style and identity, and that is most prevalent in the show's presentation. At first glance for this anime, you'd probably look at it and go, okay, yeah, that's from Persona. Particularly if you're familiar with Persona's anime adaptations at all, since this was animated by A1 Pictures, which is famously known for doing 3 out of 4 of the Persona 3 movies. Yeah, they didn't do the first one apparently, I literally just found that out while researching. Cutscenes for Persona 4, along with Studio Hibari, the Persona 4 Golden Anime, and the Persona 5 Daybreakers OVA. So they've done quite a bit of work for the Persona series over the years. But their first job was Trinity Soul, and my god, I don't necessarily blame this on A1 Pictures. I'm sure they tried their best. I know very well that A1 Pictures is an incredible studio, having animated some of my favorite animes in general, such as Your Lie in April, Too Many Losing Heroines, Kaguya-sama, Licorice Recoil, etc. And yet, with this series, it's just, I mean, it's okay. It's not bad by any means. It's just kind of there, like, yep, that's Persona? Maybe? The fights, especially, are kinda sourceless. They can have some good moments every now and then, but for the most part, they don't last long, and are honestly generic. Any of the complexity of Persona's fight system is completely gone here. There's no arcanas, so no typing system, no sign of any kind of stand-in for SP, not even any move names. They have moves, but they're just kind of random attacks and not actually named. There are abilities, like Shin has the ability to remove other people's personas, which is a bit fucking insane, but okay, I guess, it's at least something. This is something I really like to say about this show. It's Persona, but it's not Persona. They don't even yell out Persona when they summon them. Hell, actually, their way of summoning it is, say it with me now, boring. Think about it like this. Persona 3, they shoot themselves in order to show their acceptance of death. Persona 4, the card crushing represents acceptance of self. Persona 5, ripping off their masks is representative of them rebelling by showing their true selves to society, instead of who society believes they should be. In Trinity Soul, they just appear. It's not even cool, they literally just appear. It's not at all anything that interesting. The whole Persona but not Persona thing works, and yet at the same time it also doesn't work. because on one hand the show is extremely easy to get into for new fans, but even then it's not representative of what Persona truly is. It's misleading. Shadows aren't even a thing in this show, not even a mention or a quick remark. They might as well not even exist. And once again, since there's no shadows, there's no dungeon crawling here, which basically means no Tartarus TV World Mementos equivalent. Akihiko, as much as I'm glad he's here, doesn't even reference anything from Persona 3 or really his past in general. He knows how much loss can hurt, and he could have easily at least referenced Miki or Shinjiro, but he doesn't. Hell, he could have talked to Morimoto and spoken to her about Aegis. Aegis honestly should have been in this show. No way that stupid adults can't use personas thing would affect her, because she's still a robot at the end of the day. She can't age, and she could be a great mentor figure for Morimoto. Hell, speaking of friends and mentors or whatever, social links aren't even a thing here. Shin's friends amount to his brothers, now brother, and his 3, now 2, classmates. He doesn't go around meeting people, forming unbreakable connections, and helping them through their problems. He instead just kind of relies on the friends he has, and it's insane because this is the character we'd be able to do a lot with, since Persona protagonists are usually silent. The choices they make are up to the player, not them. This show just feels weird at the end of the day, like it was meant to be an original IP, but then got the Persona label thrown onto it, when it's clear the writer's understanding of this series is incredibly surface level, maybe not even that honestly. I think there's a reason Atlus refuses to even acknowledge this show's existence nowadays, meaning that the only way to experience this show is through not very legal means at 480p. And that's because its worst crime isn't just being boring, but it's a representation of everything Atlus probably doesn't want the series to be. It lacks style, flair, interesting characters, really anything that shapes this series is missing here. But, who knows, I like Persona 3 Reload, so maybe everything I say is completely invalid, and this show is actually incredible and a masterpiece and the best Persona thing to have a Persona. Jokes aside, I just wanted to talk about this show for a bit. It's such a weird piece of existence, it stands out so far from the rest of the series, that I felt like I needed to discuss it. Overall, if you've never experienced anything Persona at all, you might get a little bit of enjoyment from this, although I'd argue not much, and if you're already a Persona fan, I don't really recommend this, like, in the slightest. It's the textbook definition of mediocre. But that's just my thoughts. That's all I have to say regarding this thing. If you enjoyed, like, subscribe, share, whatever. If you didn't, send me a voice note on Twitter yelling at me, like, really loudly, telling me my videos sucked. But regardless, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.
Check it out, I'm in the house like carpet. And if there's too many heads in my blunt, I won't spark it. I'll put it in my pocket and save it like rocket fuel. To everybody's